Hello and a big welcome today to our new star here. She is Swedish but live in Colorado in USA. And a big welcome to you, Linnea Helander. It's so nice to have you here. And we decided to speak English because many of your friends now is in USA and you wanted them also to see this. So a big welcome to you.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
And I'm so curious. What make you move to USA?
I studied for a little bit, and then I met my partner, and
Hmm.
that's it.
All right, all right.
So
Yeah,
yeah, no, and then living in the US is, I guess, I was like, for a little bit, that would be cool. Like I lived in the UK for 2 years as well, and then I'm like, well, I'll go and study a little bit in the US, and that was 5 years ago, and
yeah. And did you also ride and had horses in Sweden before you went to
yes.
UK? And
So I've been riding for about 25 years.
hmm.
And I went to riding school and did all of that, had some training horses. Then I moved to the UK and worked as a stable manager for two
Hmm.
years. And then I came here and I ran a barn for a little bit in Chicago. And then when we moved here and I was able to actually have horses, I by accident came home with a little Mustang mare.
Ah,
I,
I know these accidents, yes.
yes, I was training
Mm.
some training horses in a round corral close to the road, and this lady drives up and she asked me about the arena and the round pen, and I tell her, well, it's not mine. I'm just a trainer. And oh, you're a trainer. I have this horse. She's free if you want her. We have had her for about a year. She's a Mustang, and we have never been able to touch her.
Wow.
So I'm like, well, I will come and look at her because I've been offered horses, and you come there, and they have all health issues, and the kindest thing would probably been to put them down. But at that point, I had nowhere to put a horse. I had no field, no nothing, no stalls. But I messaged my partner and says, hey, I'm gonna go and look at this horse. And I go up there. She is the cutest little bay mare, big, massive forelock, big, massive mane, and does not want anything to do with us. She sees us coming, she runs and runs and runs and runs. And they decide to catch her with a lasso, and just so I can like put hands on her, and I catch her and everything. And this is not something I speak for. I don't use lassos and all that kind of stuff, but that's what they wanted to do. And I put a halter on her just to kind of see what the vibe is. Take it off and say, I'm done. I'll take her. I'll bring her home. And they say, you can come and work with her here at our
Mhm.
place, because we didn't really want to see if we could get a halter on her at least. And 2 days later, she has a halter and she follows me around the field. And you could tell that she probably have had some kind of training somewhere at some point. But they said they had never been able to touch her. And like 5 days later, we load her up. I have a huge shed that I kind of made to a stall, and we built a big field in just a couple of days. And she was the sweetest little thing, but she probably had some health issues because she was from a herd called West Douglas that
Mhm.
is here in Colorado, and it's a lot of inbreeding, and it's not any food, so they start eating poisonous plants
Oh,
and get issues from that. So we had her for about 2 years, and she would be fine, and then out of nowhere absolutely explode and would not stop until she was happy about it. So I started her a little bit under saddle, She would be perfect, like absolutely perfect, and then just lose her mind. And at that point, so I was like, well, I don't want to sell her because I don't want anyone else to ever start her under saddle, because she doesn't want to. She doesn't want to do it. Some Mustangs just don't want to do it. And so she is now living in a sanctuary on, how do you spell it? It's 22,000 acres. So it would be, I don't know how you translate it to hectares, but a lot of land.
Yeah.
With
a big place.
A very big place. Like, it's hard to even grasp how big this place is. And I think they have 50 other horses, Mustangs as well, that just didn't want to do it. She was at this point 10 years old, and she just didn't want to. Like, I had her checked over, and we couldn't find anything like obvious physically wrong with her.
No.
And at this point, I'm like, she's not started on the saddle at 10. She's already a little flighty. She would be fine. Like, my partner, who's kind of beginner in horses, would take her out and lead her around and play around with her. So she was safe and she was sweet, but she just didn't want to. And at that point, when they tell us that I don't want to, like, you have the option to send them to a sanctuary, and they can be wild horses as they were.
Yeah.
So
you were talking about this place that a lot of Mustangs are there, and their problem with the food and everything. I know that the government have some plans for them, and I know that many Swedes don't know what this is because they think it's better for the horses to live in the wild. But please explain to us what happens out there.
So just like with any wild animal, like, they need to keep the population down. And wild horses, compared to deer, for instance, don't really have any wild predators. They're like, mountain lion might take one down if it's sick or really injured, but they're not going to go out of their way to hunt the wild horses. So the Mustangs, they do turn into a lot very quickly. So they do the roundups to make sure that the Mustangs that are out in the wild thrive, compared to feeding some places have like 300 Mustangs in one herd. So feeding a small herd compared to a big herd, the smaller herd is going to have a much easier time in the wild and don't have to fight for food, and they take out the switch around the stallions, so it's not a lot of inbreeding. The West Douglas herd that they have completely taken all the horses out of there, because at this point it was bad. And sure, like, where we're at now, it's because of us. We want the land, but that's where we're at. It's other issues that's 100% should be talked about, but that's where we're at right now, and that's what kind of has to be done. And if it were other horses like deer and elk, they would just shoot them. But instead, they give them a chance to get into the holding and get adopted and actually still get to be horses.
That's right, because they choose to not shoot them, to try to find a home for them. I think that's a good idea. But tell us more about how is it to have a wild horse?
Right, so I have 3 right now. And when you first get them, you need around 180, 190 centimeter fencing. I have metal bars, because you don't know, the last one I got, she was fine, but some of them, my big guy, before he came to me, he's probably climbed over at least 4 or 5 of those panels. As from just seeing people, just being people outside the pen. So predators for them. 100%. They don't need us. We're there to hurt them. So they usually start off in there until I can catch, until they're comfortable that I can catch them. I can put a halter on and lead them around. And I'm sure they're not going to jump out of the field.
Yeah, that's right. How do they transport them when they come to you? They can't touch them. How do they do that?
Back the trailer into like an area, and then you run them into the trailer.
Okay.
And then you close, and I back it into my area, and you open and you run them out.
Yeah. Okay.
So, and then as soon as they get used to you, used to being around, I usually let them out in a little bigger field that has still pretty tall. It's probably 170 centimeter fencing, wooden fencing, but not quite as massive. And then when I know they're fine in there, then they get to go out on proper fence, on proper fields with a little bit less. And it's not uncommon that they kind of start running because they're happy being out and they don't see the lines. So I have had to go and get horses out of the field a couple of times.
Yeah, I know the feeling.
Usually it's fine. Like I take it slow and I make sure that they're comfortable. They're comfortable in the herd, and it usually goes fine.
How do you approach them if they're scared as a hare when you come? What? How do you do it? Just stand there and talk to them, or?
For a little bit, it depends a little bit on the horse. Like I just picked up a little Pinto, Palomino Pinto, and she loves people.
Okay.
Yep. So I went down with a friend to pick up. So we have a holding pen like down here where I live, and I went with a friend to pick up a couple for her. And this little Mustang followed me around the field, and I'm like, message my partner, and we're like, sorry. And 2 weeks later, we go and pick her up, and she's been super sweet. But when you have one that is properly scared of you, you're in there, you kind of exist in their space. I don't like the round penning where you just run them and run them and run them and run them.
No.
I put a little bit of pressure to kind of just ask them to start coming into me, but I sit by the hay and like just food usually. Sometimes they refuse to take food for a while because they trust it. My big gelding, he still doesn't take carrots and apples. But and you just give them a little bit of time. And in the end, they're curious animals when it comes to it. They're after a while there. I have nice horses, so they kind of hang out with by the fence too. And they just in the end they come up, and you might get where it kind of just comes up, and I feed them with hay, because then they can't really see your hand. It's just the hay. And so most of the time that works. Sometimes you have harder ones where you kind of have to put a little bit of pressure on them to use. And then as soon as they turn into you and get like acknowledge that you're there, you just take all the pressure off and just walk away and just sit down and hang out. And in the end, they're going to be, oh, I wonder who you are. I wonder what you are. But it depends a lot on the Mustang. If they're younger, it's probably easier. If they're a little bit older, they're very set in their ways.
You were talking about apples. Are they used to eat apples, or is it a new thing for them?
It's usually a new thing. Even treats or any grain. They're like they don't trust suspicious things. If they eat something in the wild that they don't really know what it is, that can be something bad. So, and a stressed horse don't usually eat around you. If they're really stressed and really like in themselves, they won't take treats. So if you have a horse that takes treats, and they're usually pretty mellow and comfortable with you there. If you have one that won't take treats, you have a horse that is pretty shut down, pretty worried about you being there. And so I try to not force it. If they take treats, then we're good. If they don't, we have some other work to do. Usually start with a bucket and
yeah. How did you learn this? Is it a procedure that you have been through, or you just have it in your blood and your feelings and
a little bit, like I would say, has been from just working for a really long time with horses in general, like
yeah.
timing and like when to release pressure and put pressure, all of that I think has just come from many years of working with horses. But then I worked with a friend of mine who does this as well, and she taught me a lot of things, little things that you don't really think about. Like your easiest way to see if a horse is with you or stressed is that they won't blink.
Yeah.
They can stand there for 10 minutes without blinking. And
that's amazing. Yeah.
right, and like a resting on a back leg doesn't always mean that they're resting. Like
No.
some horses, when they're kind of concerned, they do that so they can easily kick you if they feel like they need to. So it's little things that you kind of didn't really think about. That all right, this might not be an easy thing.
No. Did you have one that was aggressive, or they
I
always
haven't
frightened?
had any aggressive horses. I don't think a horse will, if you don't push it over the threshold, I don't think they will get aggressive.
No.
So if you don't force them to be aggressive, I don't think they will be aggressive. My gelding that I have, he was caught 2020 from a place called Antelope Hills in Wyoming, and they didn't get gelded for a long time because of COVID, so they couldn't get a vet out. So they were pretty much sitting in a pen, a lot of stallions next to the mares.
Oh,
So
wow.
they pretty much went through Fight Club. So he came to my friend like gelded just a couple of days earlier, and all they knew was fighting. So he was the one who's been climbing out of panels, and he's been a bit difficult. I didn't know him at that point, so I can't really say anything about why or anything like that, why he was like that. And he's my partner calls him Eeyore. He's a sweetheart, but he's very suspicious. He's still very suspicious of, he will do all the things, but he doesn't trust it.
Okay.
And he was gentle, pretty harsh. But he also, he kicked my friend and double barreled my friend in the chest, because his first response when he didn't want to do something was turning around and kicking. And he locked another friend in his pen. So she had to call someone to try to get her out.
Wow.
Usually if you push them, they will kind of leave you alone. But she said she kept pushing him, and he just stood there with his butt again towards her. And if she pushed him, he would just back up towards her, kind of like, don't you tell me what to do. So he was very tough, but he has turned into a sweetheart. But so he was supposed to be sent back to holding because he was a bit difficult.
Okay.
But he's here and he's not going anywhere. He gets the time he needs if he needs it. And he's,
How long time do you give them when they're difficult?
it depends. I have promised Coca that he's gonna stay here. He's not going anywhere. Some horses, I feel like if you take the responsibility for it, like you need to give it some time. I know people after, if they don't do it after a month or two, they send them off their merry way.
Yeah.
I feel like at least depends a little bit. I would say give it a year.
Yeah.
That's probably where I would put my limit and say, we're finding you a sanctuary. My new little Freya that I have, I probably sat on her bareback after 3 weeks.
Wow. Yeah.
And she was sleeping lying down in my lap after 2 weeks. And so she's very sweet, but with the ones that are not scared of people, you have other issues where they learned that you don't run over people.
Mm.
You don't move people with your body, just
Mm.
like you do with all the youngsters that you're in the pen with. She is turning 4 this year, so she's a baby. And in the beginning, it was a lot of, well, I want to leave now,
Mm.
so I'm gonna leave. If you're in my way, I'm just gonna move you.
Yeah.
So it's different issues. I prefer the ones that are friendly and not scared of you and teach them how to keep their distance
Mm.
compared to the ones that are really scared of you.
Yeah.
But it's preference. My friend prefers the other way around. So
Okay. Yeah. But you can, I can imagine you can feel this scarcity when you are with them. It must be difficult when you can't get in touch with them somehow.
yeah, it's a lot of, you learn a lot of body language.
Yeah.
A lot of body language and timing, when to take the pressure off.
Mm.
And even if, like, for them at this point, the biggest reward you can ever give them is to take your pressure off and
Mm.
just leave them alone, is
Yeah.
the biggest thing you can give them when they're scared. And in the beginning, you kind of have to just,
Mm.
that's your biggest thing. If they get nervous and they still try to push through and like even look at you, so in the beginning it's just stopping and maybe looking at you, and you step away, and then usually they figure it out the more you are around and just hanging out. Sorry, I might sneeze. Okay, just hanging out, the more comfortable they get with you. Like a lot of them are, they want to be around, they want to,
Mm.
they wonder what you're doing, and if you hang out by the hay, they slowly kind of come up, and
Yeah.
it's a
And
time.
as a human being, it's difficult to back away because you want to do so much. You want
Yep,
to pet
yep,
them. You want to do the best for them.
yeah,
So just to back up and leave, it's a big step for a human
yeah,
being.
yeah. Like you learn
Mm.
that's, and then when they start taking like the steps towards you, then you're like, okay, we got it.
Mm.
But a lot of people, like, they use the ropes and everything to get this quicker. But I have worked with these horses, and they'll do what they're told.
Yeah.
You can tell that they're not that comfortable with it.
Mm.
They know what's expected of them, they know what they're supposed to do, but you kind of stand there and they're like, I'm here.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have two, right? Two, well, I have three, but two of them, the ones I have, they're puppy dogs.
Mm.
Want to come as soon as I open the door, they're standing by the field, by the gate, just waiting for you. They follow you around the field. I was supposed to work my gelding the other day, and my little mare, my 2-year-old, she just blocked me every time. She was like, please keep me, keep me. So like they're gentled without any of that. So they got in time to realize that people are not scary,
Mm.
and then get pretty much everything for free. Because now
Yeah.
they're not concerned with you. Like, I threw up a saddle on my new one and she couldn't care less. Like, I jumped up on her bareback from the ground and she couldn't care less. She like, you're fine. I trust you.
Mm.
So if you say that this is fine, this is fine.
Yeah, that's great. Well, are you living of this, or do you have a job, or what are you doing?
I train other people. I work as a trainer as well. So
Yeah.
I travel to other people and train normal horses as well.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I'm hoping, like, we haven't been here in this place for that long, so we're still setting up and trying to. So right now I only have one extra. My gelding and my young one is my horses. They're not going anywhere. This little Palomino, she is supposed to go as soon as she's ready. She's supposed to find her own home.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, be able to set up so I can take two new ones throughout the summer, and then just get them like workable so you can handle them.
Mm-hmm.
So they had now the tip program that was before, where trainers would take Mustangs, gentle them, and then people would still adopt them from the government,
Mm-hmm.
but they would get trained horses, because not everyone has the facility to have a wild horse. Not everyone wants to train a wild horse. Not
No.
everyone is able to train a wild horse. So to get the Mustangs good homes, you had the tip program, which were trainers that would train the horses to be, the criteria were leading, haltering, picking up all 4 feet, trailer loading, and brushing, and like just be handleable, be able
Mm-hmm.
to do what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Then you would adopt them out.
So the hardest work is done.
Yes,
Yeah.
for the most part. And then they're always, so it's common that Mustangs have, we call it stranger danger. So they might be perfectly fine with me,
Mm.
but they might not be perfectly fine with a person they have no idea who they are.
No.
Um, so then you usually know, you tell them that, hey, I would leave the halter on. I wouldn't put them out in a huge, massive grass field to start with. And just get to know each other. Like, they know all the things and they should know all the things, but sometimes they are concerned that you're a new person. I have, when people come out here, friends or family or my partner's friends, I always have this like, go and pet the Mustangs. Go
Yeah.
and hang out with the Mustangs. They need to get to know
So
people.
socialize. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that is the same with a tame horse when you are selling them. Nobody is alike, so if you can sell a good horse to one who doesn't fit with it,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I can think of the many things that can go wrong in this thing. Can they come and ride them by you and before they
Yes. So I
purchase it?
prefer if people come and at least meet them. At this point, I've kind of stepped away from, if I have a really good one, I might start them on the saddle, but I just do the tip training, and then I have a lot of friends around me that can start on the saddle. So if they want a saddle started one, I'm like, well, then they come from here, go to the trainer, get saddle started, then home to the person. And if they want to come and meet them, I prefer that.
Mm.
But the United States is a big state, big country. And like, I moved here and my friend said we were going to take a short trip to a horse auction. And this horse auction was 6 hours away. And that's a short. So it's bigger than you're like, in the beginning, I was like, God, but 6 hours is nothing. We drove down 15 hours to see the solar eclipse. And then next day they drove 15 hours back. So
Ooh, yeah.
yeah, so it's different. But if someone can't come from Washington or San Francisco, anything like that, I can usually be okay with that. If I have a good horse, if I have one that is a little bit difficult, I would prefer if the person comes and meet them.
Mm.
But if I have an easy one, I'm okay with hauling that they get a hauler, as long as they know kind of what's the deal is.
Mm. How is the prices on horses in USA? I understand they're quite more expensive than in Sweden.
I wouldn't, I think it's kind of like Sweden has kind of slowly risen quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say it's that different. Like the Mustangs are $125 when you buy them wild.
Oh, yeah. But
So, but a good Mustang that is tall and that has color and nice build and a good head on their shoulders, like you can get a decent amount of money for them
mm,
because they're like Mustangs are usually not very tall.
no.
Like I'm lucky with all three of mine. They're really tall horses,
Okay.
but that big one, like people usually want to pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
But and if I have a really nice one, I might go up a little bit in price. But I'd rather they find a home than me getting a couple of thousand extra.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but if I have a good one that I'm like, I wouldn't mind if she stays,
Mm-hmm.
stay here. Um, if I don't get what they're worth, I just keep it
Yeah.
until like I might, because they're a good horse is a good horse. Like always, doesn't matter what the papers say. A good horse is a good horse, and I, people get Mustangs because they're supposed to be so cheap, and people are trying to change that because they're good horses.
Yeah, of course.
Like I live in the middle of nowhere, super rocky, and I have no shoes on my horses.
I was just
And
going to ask you, how is the how is the feed and all that? Yeah.
yeah, feet are perfect. Like we
Yeah.
have proper rocks, like big sharp rocks, and they just go through it without nothing. They're easy keepers. Uh, usually don't have that much, like that many health issues. Like colic isn't a massive thing because they're used to eating different things, and like
Mm-hmm.
of course it happens. Like of course it happens, but they're pretty hardy horses.
Yeah.
Uh, and like my 2-year-old, she's coming 3. I'm supposed to do. My plan is for her to do eventing. She's string tests at about 170, so she's gonna be a big girl.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so I'm hoping she's gonna do good out on competing and show off the breed that they're good horses.
And competing, what is that? Is it the dressage or jumping or
I want to do eventing with her, so dressage, jumping, cross country,
okay.
because she's brave and she goes through everything and she jumps over anything.
Mm,
And I just started sitting on her. She's just a baby, so she mostly works from the ground, but
yes.
and she's been great. She came here because she was dangerous. She had a bit of an attitude, and if you put hard against hard with her, she will put hard back.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a lot of rearing and striking and turning around and kicking. And the owner were like, I'm scared of selling her. I
Yeah.
like, what if she hurt someone? And I had worked with her and kind of seen, and she's super brave. She doesn't
Yeah.
care about anything. And I was like, I'll take her. Like
Mm-hmm.
she was supposed to go to a sanctuary as a 2-year-old. And I'm like, super friendly, comes up in the field. I'm like, I'll take her. If
Yeah.
you're just gonna send her to a sanctuary, like you don't mind, send her to me. And she is the sweetest thing ever.
Mm-hmm.
Like I hopped up on her like nothing and she didn't care. And yeah, she comes up in the field. She loves butt scratches, so she will chase you backwards in the field. So she's an absolute sweetheart. She had her first trail ride yesterday, even if it was 10 minutes out into the back of the property. But
Mm-hmm.
she's a great horse. And I was lucky that I managed to pick her up, and she's gonna be a good one.
Yeah.
And she gets the chance to be a good one, and not take. And that's kind of where sanctuaries sometimes isn't the greatest, because they take a lot of famous horses that people know from the range, that herds that have been photographed a lot, and they have all the names, and They know the sire and they know the mare. And they adopt them just so they can get donations instead of, and they could have been perfect horses, thriving in with people. But you'll never know. Instead, a horse that does not thrive, does not want to be around people, doesn't get a spot because that spot is already filled by a horse that could have done perfect with people.
Okay, yeah.
Kind of like with my first mare and with this mare, like they're complete. Both my mares now, they thrive with people. They love people. While the other one didn't. So, but my mare who loves people, we're going to take a spot at the sanctuary. And like, they spend a lot of money adopting these horses that they could have spent the horses that have no bids, like in the auctions. And it was a horse now, her name was Thora. They just adopted, the auction just ended and she sold for $60,000. So, right, 500,000 Swedish crowns. Just because people know about her. Like her sire just got killed in the wild by another stud. So she's supposedly the only like offspring of him. That's a lot of horses that could have been rescued and a lot of people that could have been paid for. Like for one horse. And like I said, like you don't know what you get. I like going down and meet the horses in person in the holding facilities instead of bidding on the online auction, because you bid and you have no idea what you get.
No.
So someone might have spent 500,000 Swedish crowns on a horse that they never will be able to work with. Like which is, for me, that's crazy. It's a lot of horses that you can spend a lot of feed for one horse just because she's famous. And then it was a lot of other horses that were sitting there without any bids that didn't get adopted at all. So it's a little bit, it's war out there.
Yeah, I can imagine. But when you're talking about going to competition, how many hours do you have to go with the horse then?
So I have about 3 hours to Denver from here. So it's probably, we have some a little bit closer, so probably about an hour is the closest we would be able to go. But otherwise anywhere between 3 and 5 hours one way.
Okay, yeah.
We're out here in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
But they should get used to it.
It's like
not
northern Sweden.
pretty much.
So, what are your dreams? What do you want to do in the future?
I would love to like set up a little bit more and so I can get at least, I don't really want more than 3 Mustangs at a time here. Over the ones I like, my own ones, because I want to be able to spend time. I want to be able to put in the time. I can opt 10 Mustangs and like, because they're cheap and they're like, you can just put them in the pen. But I want to have time. I want to not be out there for 10 hours working every day.
No.
And having to stress through them. I wonder if someone needs 2 hours to just kind of relax a little bit. I want to be able to give them 2 hours. And then, like, this is really far down the road, but be able to have people come out and meet the Mustangs and like have set up so they can learn to work with the Mustangs and all of that. But want to put up a little accommodation here on the property where people can stay and like want to make it a little bit bigger just so people could come out and hang out with the Mustangs and learn. And so it's
I think you could get a lot of people from Sweden coming there.
Yeah, I was thinking about maybe not this summer, but next summer at least opening up a little bit. So if people want to come, like I said I don't mind people coming if they want to come and meet the Mustangs and how it works. And we don't always have completely wild ones, but like it's not hard to, if I know people are coming, you can always pick up another one and people can get to join from see the first couple of steps and all that stuff.
Yeah. And I have heard that is a very, very beautiful nature there in Colorado.
It's different, but it's very beautiful. Like I miss the green, like the moss and the ferns and leaf trees and stuff, but it's special. Like we have all the big mountains and a lot of cacti and a lot, like it's special. Like the mountains are special. And we love it up here. I would ask for a little bit more grass so that I can put my horses out, but we don't really have green grass.
Do you have a lot of winter time, so you have to feed them all winter, or
I
how is that?
usually feed at least one feed throughout the whole year. At least one feeding of hay every day throughout the whole year. So now they're on free feed. They used to have a bale in their field, but because I'm waiting on all my grass to grow slowly. So like people, friends from Sweden send pictures of their nice green fields, and I'm like, well, I'm waiting. I have one spot that is nice and green, but it's like tiny. And we had both deer and elk here yesterday, and they were eating my grass. I went out on my porch and said, you can go over the fence and eat that whole property next to us. Goodbye. We have a lot of wildlife and they ruined my fence. So
oh yeah, I know that.
Yeah, the elk, the deer jumps in. They're good, but
yeah, but the elk they just walk right through everything.
Yeah, I watched them yesterday. They made a hole in the fence, and I'm like, I'm gonna have to go and fix that.
And that's not nice if you have Mustangs.
Yeah, like I would love to have them out. Like if when we get the whole property set up, they'll live out on the big field. But right now they're out in the day, and then they come in at night. So if someone would get out, and they get out, like that's my little mare. She kind of just walked through 5,000 volts of electricity, and I'm like, thanks, lady. I think she didn't realize it was electricity, so she was like leaning on the fence, and it zapped her, and she jumped forward. And she took the fence with her. And they are not, like I said, they don't really know about fencing for the first little bit.
No.
So you let them out, and they're happy to be out, and you hold your breath. They're like running towards the fence. Please stop. So I try to usually put little ribbons on it so they can at least see a little bit, but sometimes they don't, and it happens. Luckily, like I have properties outside of my property, so everything is fenced off. So even if they would get off my property, they're still in a fenced property.
Okay.
And when they get out, if they like when they're so far that they're out there, they're already easy to catch. They already usually come up in the field, and so you can just go and pick them up.
That's nice. Yeah.
Yeah. So I try to not put them out if I don't know that they can catch, they're not going out in a big field.
No.
Because then you're never gonna get close to them again.
No.
And you might to put up a corral and be able to like herd them into the corral, and it's just gonna be a lot of stress. Like I did get that in the beginning when people asked about it, and I'm like, well, I have now it's quite a bit bigger, but the smallest requirement for a wild Mustang to start with is about 190 and 190 centimeter fence, tall fence, and it's 24 by 24 feet. So it's a square. Like mine is a bit bigger, but letting them out into a big massive field, they're just gonna be like, well, goodbye.
Yeah.
And I want them out.
Imagine. Yes.
Yeah, I want them out as quick as possible. So that's like the first thing we work on is haltering. It's supposed to be easy. Then they get out into my bigger one, which is it's a decent size. It's a decent dirt lot. Where the fence is a little bit less. And
Yeah.
then when good with the herd and they're good with the horses, they're not gonna go through the fence. They get to go out in the big field. Because most of the time they're doing good. Like I know a lot of people keep them in their gentling pen until they adopt them out, but I want them to be good with other horses. I want to know that they're good with field, fence, and before they leave. And leading in and out to the field is always a big deal. Freya, who I have now, she has been perfect, absolutely perfect with everything, but she's really scared of leaving her pen.
Yeah.
Like that's been her hard thing. The first time I took her out, my other mare was out. She kind of graces wherever she wants. And I was like, well, now she has a friend out here. I'll lead her out. She comes out and she is like standing really wide with her feet and she's shaking.
Oh.
And I'm like, we are literally half meter from the pen. And she is shaking. And I take her back in and I'm like, well, I guess we're not there yet. And now we started walking on little tiny walks, but she's been perfect with everything else, like saddling and getting on and like jumping up with the saddle, bridling, leading, going over objects. All of that has been perfect. But for her, leading out of the pen was very scary for her. So.
And you could, but it's strange because she used to be free. Why then? But
I don't, they,
you can't read their thoughts.
right, exactly. Like, but she's comfortable in her pen.
Yeah.
She knows what's going on, and she don't know what's out here.
No.
Like, and no, she's doing good. But that's also like that's hard for people to grasp that leading your horse outside of the pen is a huge deal. That's like leading them like with a halter and lead rope out of the pen. Like people take their horses out of in and out of the field every day.
Yeah.
But that's for the Mustangs. That's a big deal. Like first walk outside of the pen, it's a big deal, and
Yeah.
it's a big deal for owners as well. First time you're able to lead your Mustangs where you're not enclosed.
I can imagine as well to take up their feet would be a big deal for them.
Sometimes I work with some that does not want to give feet. My gelding, he does not like his back feet picked up at all. He does it and he has the barrier out, but he's very uncomfortable with it. Freya, she just picked her feet up. She's just like, okay, I'll give you my feet. So it depends. Like if you have one that's comfortable around people, is usually not that much of a deal, like that big of a deal. Coca doesn't trust it. He's a little bit. I think he might have something going on in the back, in his probably far up in his back legs. So he's getting stretches and getting some treatment for that because he's not a bad dude. Like, but he's still very concerned about his back legs. So that you can usually see as well. Like if you have one that's really sweet and friendly, but has issue with the back legs, it can be something that's hurting somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely.
And with him jumping through metal panels, he's probably a little bit crooked. So he's getting treated and I'm hoping it's going to do good for him.
Yeah. So time is running, and if somebody wants us to get in touch with you, do you know anybody where they can visit, or do you open your ranch for somebody? Or
I'm happy to open up here for if people want to come and visit and everything like that.
yeah,
And want to meet the Mustangs and even see Colorado.
yes,
not just come here to where I'm at, but so you want to come here and stay here and spend time with the Mustangs and then go and see the rest of Colorado, we're open to
Mhm.
to
Do you
anything
have
that
a Facebook profile or a homepage or anything?
um so I have my Facebook is Silver Lining Mustangs, and then my Instagram Silver Lining Horse Training. So you can usually find me
Yeah.
on there, or my private Facebook works as well. Uh, so it's we're happy to. I like talking about the Mustangs and have people come and actually see what's going on, because it's a
Mm.
lot. You read a lot, and depending on where you read it, you get a lot of different opinions. And
Yeah.
coming to see it firsthand is it makes a difference.
Mhm. Absolutely. Yeah, it have been so nice to have you here, and I have got a lot of questions and got them an answer for them. So thank you very, very much to showing up today. Uh, it has been a pleasure, and I'm a bit wiser today.
Yeah, no,
Uh,
I'm happy you reached out and asked. I think I like, yeah, spreading the word of the Mustang.
yeah, and it's not so usual to meet a Swedish person in USA. So uh, many years ago, a lot of Swedes went to USA, but not today. I think it's not that easy to move to
God, no.
USA.
No, it's
Uh,
really tough, actually.
yeah,
It's been a long road, but
I can imagine.
we're getting there.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, thank you so much, and
Thank you.
thank you for you out there who have been listening and seeing this. And please subscribe to this channel because it helps me to meet new people every week. So thank you so much and have a nice day.